Thanks everybody for joining us today for how to audit your HubSpot portal. I'm Katie Cartwright, Inbound Marketing Manager at Madison Marketing Group, and I'm joined today by Sam Swyke, our Content Manager here at Madison Marketing Group. Like I said, we'll give the presentation today about how to audit your HubSpot portal. We don't have unlimited time, so hopefully we'll have time to take some questions at the end, but if we don't, please feel free to reach out to us at support@madisonmarketing.com. We'll make sure to get this recording and slide deck up and out to you guys after the presentation. So let's get started. Today, our agenda, we'll talk about why you might want to audit your HubSpot portal, talk about some general steps to auditing a portal, look at specific tools to audit within HubSpot, and then we'll talk about incorporating some third-party data to kind of enhance, what you find out within your portal. And then, like any good HubSpot partner, we do have an offer at the end. So, reasons to audit your HubSpot portal. First reason is you're not seeing the marketing performance that you'd like to. Maybe you're not seeing enough traffic or conversions, or you've been doing the same things for a really long time. You want to try something new, but it makes sense to take a deep dive and make sure that you're aware of everything that you're doing already. Second reason, you might want to get sales more involved with your marketing efforts. So, they might want to start making use of some of the HubSpot tools, or there is a need for a clearer picture about, what data gets sent over to sales, how that's working, certain processes, or where leads are coming from. They kind of want to know more about the leads that are landing on their plate. And so digging in and figuring out what's going on in HubSpot can help them see that picture. The other reason, if you've had HubSpot for a while, maybe had an updated website or branding change, you've been through multiple campaigns, different employees, can just lead to a big mess within your portal. So if you've ever had a challenge finding the, different pieces of what you need, or you have multiple people or teams with access to all of the tools, can lead to just kind of a nightmare. So one of the main reasons that we recommend HubSpot portal audits is if you just need to get a better handle on what's going on in general and you need to clean things up. Once you go through your audit, you should be able to, make sure that you are using the tools that are available to you. You're not just using HubSpot to send emails and publish blog posts. You have a better understanding of what the tools can actually do and make use of them. Hopefully you identify some problems that are kind of affecting your marketing program overall. Maybe you have some slow pages or some setup errors, or problems that are happening that you didn't actually realize are going on. Can identify some opportunities for efficiency improvement, help improve your internal processes, and then just make sure that all of whatever you're doing within HubSpot is currently aligning with your business priorities, which if you've been using HubSpot for a long time, especially if you have a lot of automations set up that are kind of running in the background, it's good to take a look and make sure that those are all current. So talking about what steps to take when you are auditing in general, kind of look at why you want to do an audit in the first place. Is it marketing focused, sales focused? If you can't audit your full portal, having the reasoning behind wanting to look into things can help prioritize which tools you want to use. If you're hearing common complaints, so-and-so can't find something, you wish that HubSpot could do X, Y, and Z. Maybe since you've heard that they can do that. So I think looking at that to get started is a good place to start. And then once you have that basic underlying reason of why you want to do an audit, you want to take a look at your baseline performance. Where are you now? And that's something that's going to be different for everybody. We're not, in this presentation, we're not going to go over a lot of those, industry benchmarks or, general KPIs, because we do understand that it is different for everyone. Everyone's using the portal differently. If you're a smaller company and you've grown your list organically and you keep it really clean, maybe you're going to see better engagement metrics than someone who imported a list of 20,000 people that they acquired 10 years ago. So this is really about taking a look within your own portal at your own performance and making some decisions based on that. So looking at each tool, once you get into HubSpot, you'll want to take a look at that performance and then decide whether you want to remove any unused or underperforming assets that you have in each tool. And, I always recommend deleting anything that's not used or really old. A lot of the tools have an option to archive as well. And then as you're cleaning things up, always recommend standardizing any naming conventions and then build improvements for success with your overall marketing program. So we'll talk about the individual tools. These are the ones that we'll go over today. It's not an exhaustive list of everything that is in HubSpot. It focuses mostly on things within the Marketing Hub. But at the end, we will go over some third-party tools that you can include just to get a fuller picture of what's going on outside of HubSpot. First up, we will talk about contacts. First thing you want to do is double check that you are, have a total amount of contacts that are, what you're paying for or less than what you're paying for. You can do that under settings, account and billing, and then you can view your usage and limits. And just a reminder here, probably obvious to everyone, HubSpot is paid for by the number of contacts you have in your portal. So we always recommend starting with looking at your contacts, making sure the contacts that you have in HubSpot are the ones that you need. And the way that we do that is coming up on the next slide. But another setting here that we recommend looking at is making sure that your contact and company associations are what you want them to be, and that lifecycle stage is synced how you need it for your company. Again, there's no right or wrong answers here. These settings basically say that anytime a contact is created, associate them with a company. If their company doesn't exist yet in HubSpot, to create it. The lifecycle stage sync updates the lifecycle stage automatically between companies and contacts. So if your company is set to become a customer, all of the contacts associated with that company then also become customers. The other important thing to take a look at within contacts auditing is whether or not you have your GDPR tools turned on. And again, we can't tell you what is right or wrong to do here, but turning them on does enable setting up a cookie notice. It opens up a bunch of tools within the form setup and gives you that legal basis for processing property that you can use. All right, so taking a look at the contacts themselves, I think I've heard that your lists can be expected to decay at a rate of about 20% per year. So if you've had HubSpot for a long time, you have a lot of really old contacts, you can assume some of them have probably moved on, and you may have seen your email deliverability suffer, engagement metrics kind of plummeting over time. So one thing that I like to do is keep a list of all the contacts, and I do that just by creating a list with email is known and kind of keeping tabs on it over time. Within the list tool, you can look at your list performance, and it'll show how it's grown over time, where people are coming from. And then I like this little chart at the bottom of that page that shows how contacts in that list have engaged with your website, converted on a form, or opened an email, or clicked an email. If you keep tabs on this kind of regularly and see those numbers start to change, one thing that we do to audit the contacts within a portal is taking everybody, running them through a third-party tool called Never Bounce, and that'll give us the deliverability. So anybody who has an invalid email, can't be delivered to, we typically recommend just cutting them from HubSpot unless you need that historic reference point. Like I said, consider removing unengaged contacts. And then if you're still not seeing your numbers return to what you expect them to be, try and create a plan for re-engaging some of those older, staler contacts, whether it's looking at the subject lines of your emails, or maybe creating some sort of email targeted ad campaign. There's a couple different things you can do to try and get your brand in front of them again. Moving on to auditing the blog tool. This view is actually under the report dashboard, reporting tool. The traffic analytics, I believe you can filter it by blog posts specifically. So here we like to look at which posts are actually getting traffic, and the posts that don't get traffic. We look at things like bounce rate, how much time people are spending on the page, to see if they're actually reading the posts. And we look at the posts themselves to see whether they are actually speaking to our bottom line. We are a marketing agency, so are the posts that we're creating posts that someone who's looking for a marketing agency would actually want to read? Anything that's not in line with that, we have kind of taken steps to cut over the years. So once you're done looking at your data, you'll want to look at a handful of posts, or all of your posts, depending on how much time you have, kind of as from a user perspective. So you'll want to do a qualitative analysis. Look for content quality and user experience. First, you want to look at how the post looks. Are you making use of headings, white space, bullet points? Is your content actually helpful and informative? If you have a lot of older blog posts back from when 300-word posts did the trick in terms of ranking on the first page of Google, you probably are not actually providing your searchers with anything helpful or informative. So those posts are definitely candidates for updating. Best practice here, each post should have a CTA. And again, does it speak to your bottom line? And what I mean by that is you want to make sure that there is a connection to your services, and that the post is actually meant for someone who you've identified as a buyer persona. And when it comes to cleaning up, you can just remove any posts, unpublish them. Don't forget to create redirects, and focus on getting rid of those old posts that don't generate traffic or convert, and then they don't align with your buyer persona. And then from there, you can create a plan for improving any remaining posts. Start with the low-hanging fruit. So those are easy improvements that have the potential to make a meaningful impact. Say you have a post that seems to be performing really well, but doesn't have a CTA on it. That's a simple change that you can make and hopefully see some positive results from that. We'll talk about landing page audit next, but once you are done looking at your blog and your landing page, you can kind of start to see some holes in your content marketing plan and plan out future posts to fill those. Okay, so before we talk about landing pages, I'll talk about the SEO tool. This one's really simple. Go under marketing, website, SEO, and then run your website through their tool. And then the simple thing to do here is to fix any of these issues. So you can see the clicking here will open up the pages that this issue is happening on. You can go to those individual pages and fix it. HubSpot also released a recent update that allows you to export this data. So if it's something that you're not able to fix yourself, you need a developer, you can give them a file with this information in it. Now here's the landing page tool audit. Here, again, you start with the data to identify your best performing offers, your worst performing offers. Here we like to look at the number of recent submissions, look at the submission rate, look at the bounce rate, just to kind of get a sense of what the data is showing, and then look at the page itself. So each page you review, you want to look at the layout, make sure that you're clearly communicating the offer, make sure that the copy is solid. It's stating what someone will get once they submit the form. Make sure that the look of the page is appealing, it doesn't look old and outdated. And then go through and test what happens once you submit the form. Does it follow best practices? Do you end up on a thank you page? Do you get a follow-up email? Does someone end up getting an internal notification? And if you have any workflows set up, double check that is happening. And then again, with each offer, review it against your buyer's journey and your personas. So ideally, you'll have content available at each stage of the buyer's journey for each persona. And if you don't, that's a gap that should be filled in. As for cleanup, I recommend deleting or archiving any old offers that aren't in use. And I think that applies to templates as well. So if there's any old branding on any templates, you'll want to make sure that those aren't accessible to people using your portal. Standardize the naming conventions of your offers. We like to use LP for the landing page and TY for the thank you page, and then just follow that up with whatever the title of the offer is or some sort of meaningful internal name that makes sense to anyone who might need to use that. That's the easy thing to do. The trickier things come when you want to make changes to the user experience, whether that's updating the offers themselves, making tweaks to copy or design of the landing pages, or maybe just starting over with a fresh template itself. And then I mentioned this already, but plan to fill those gaps in the persona buyer's journey with new or updated offers. Once you take a look at your landing page tool, the next tool you'll want to look at is the forms tool. Here you want to probably get rid of any forms that are not in use or are duplicates. One thing that is important here, HubSpot, it's really handy that HubSpot will let you know which pages forms are used on. And you can go right to those pages from the forms tool. If you are externally embedding any HubSpot forms, they do not appear on that page. So Before you go deleting anything that looks like it's not in use, always double check. And the other thing to note is that if you previously archived any landing pages or website pages, instead of deleting them, if they're no longer in use, and they had a form on them, that form will still show up on that page. So if you want to delete any unused forms, you would have to delete them from the landing page first, or delete the landing page, and then you can delete it within the Forms tool. Once you go into the individual forms themselves, you want to double check that they're in line with the fields are in line with the value of the offer. So, you're not asking 20 questions to give someone a simple white paper. You're not asking them for their full life history. The other thing that we see a lot of times that is missing is the opportunity to add hidden fields to forms that can set certain properties like life cycle stage or persona. If you have an offer that appeals to one persona that you have, but definitely would never appeal to another persona, you can use your form tool to set that persona right at the form level, rather than having to use something like a workflow. The other thing to look at within the form itself is the follow-up options. First, you want to make sure that the right people are being notified about when a submission happens. A lot of times, if someone leaves a company, they're not always removed from these types of notifications. So just cleaning that up can be helpful, especially if that person's email gets delivered to someone else who also is getting notified on the form submissions. Then you're getting a bunch of duplicate submissions. So that's less than ideal. You also have the opportunity within the form tool to send follow-up emails to the person who submitted the form from the form tool. This is also available within the form module on a landing page or a website page. So our recommendation here is just make sure that you're using that consistently. So you don't want to have duplicate notifications going out to the form submitter from the form tool and the landing page tool. When it comes down to it, I also prefer using the landing page settings, because that will open up the email within the email tool. You create the email there. You can use whatever template you want rather than just a simple, text email. And you'll get all of the, the data that comes along with the email tool as well. And then within the Forms tool, set your GDPR settings if that is applicable to you. Make sure that everything is set on each form, and you should be good to go. All right. Next up, taking a look at the email tool. HubSpot has released the Analyze tab and the Health tab. The Health tab is still in beta, but shows a lot of information about how your email program is doing overall. And just like other HubSpot tools, you're able to create filters and segment, so you can look at maybe automated emails or simple follow-up emails, and you can look at different date ranges too. So here, I like to pay particular attention to the automated emails and the user engagement there, just because those often get missed in when people analyze their emails. I think a lot of times you're focused more on the big email sends that you send out. Well, how did that email do? And the ones that are kind of going out on a consistent basis are not always, given that same level of attention. I think too, the other thing that is cool about this email health tool is it helps support contact cleanup. So if you're on the marketing team and you say, hey boss, we really need to clean up our contacts. It looks like we would delete half of them. And they say, no, those are good contacts. If you can show, in your email that hardly any of the emails are getting delivered, HubSpot has this nice red, yellow, and green grading system here that can help support you and your quest to clean up the contacts. And along with the emails tool, next up is the workflows tool. So if you've had HubSpot a long time and you have HubSpot Pro or Enterprise, you likely have some workflows set up. I always like to take a look at these individually and make sure that they are doing everything that you want it to do. The other thing, if you have an older HubSpot portal, you might not be using your most current offers if you have like a nurturing workflow set up. The other thing that sometimes gets missed is setting up some internal processes with a workflow. So, you can send notifications to people if their, leads land on a certain page or something like that. Then within each workflow, always check the settings. If you haven't set a goal for the workflow to measure success, good ones, I think, are always lifecycle stage updates if it's a nurturing one. A new option is whether someone has replied to a marketing email in HubSpot or any other relevant action to your portal. The other thing with older workflows is keeping up with HubSpot's updates. They've made a lot of updates to the workflows tool in recent years. And if you have older workflows just hanging out doing their thing, you might not be making use of these. My particular favorite is the options that are available for setting delays. So it used to be that you could do a time-based delay. So you send email 1, wait a week, send email 2. You can now do different types of delays. So if you want to delay sending email 2 until the person comes back to your website, you can do that. And then finally, again, with workflows, recommend removing any old and unused workflows. And finally, once you kind of go through all of your major tools that you use in HubSpot, I always like to take a look at the properties themselves, both contact and company properties. A lot of times what happens as portals get used by different people is forms will be created and someone will want to ask a question, and that means creating a property. And if that property isn't, if it's just used on that one form, it can be something that isn't really useful and just creates cluttered data. So the other risk there is that it is a property that shouldn't be used and accidentally does get used unintentionally, or people aren't clear on what the meaning behind that property is, and they use it to build a list or something or a report, and it spits back data that is incorrect or not what you're looking for. So with the properties tool, you can take a look, see where these properties are used, whether it's forms, lists, workflows. And then when you click into the property itself, you can see how many contacts have a value for that property. So if there is a property that is not being used in anything, it was created by someone, whether it's someone at your company or an unknown user or a deactivated user, and very few people have that property filled in, I would say that is a good candidate for getting rid of it. All right, and now I'm going to turn everything over to Sam. He's going to talk about third-party tools and how those can work with your HubSpot audit.
Thanks, Katie. So yeah, Katie just went through a bunch of stuff that's in HubSpot, but if you're gonna take some time to do a HubSpot audit, it might be worth rolling some other activities into that to look a little bit beyond HubSpot. It's something that I've added to our audit workflow for those we do audits for, because there's a lot of important things you want to look at beyond just what's happening in your portal, but how is HubSpot working out in the wild on the web? So I just quickly threw in a few ideas here based on some things that I've been doing outside of HubSpot that's kind of closely related and worth doing when you do a portal audit. And I highlighted a couple tools here that you might want to consider. The first of which being a site scraping tool like Scrutiny or Screaming Frog. Screaming Frog is very popular, much more popular than Scrutiny. It's a site scraping tool that does all kinds of things, and there's quite a bit you can do with just the freeware with it. So it's great, particularly for doing a technical SEO or technical site health assessment of the site to look for broken links, technical SEO specific type things like missing meta descriptions, spelling errors, all kinds of things that can get are subject to oversight when you're managing, especially a larger site. And I just dropped the pricing for both of these tools in here. I prefer Scrutiny, and I'm a Apple user, so Scrutiny is only for Mac, I believe, right now, and it's a standalone app on the computer, and it's a one-time cost of $115, while the license for a Screaming Frog is $200 a year. They do very similar things. Screaming Frog might be a tiny bit more powerful depending on what you use it for, but I really, really like Scrutiny. So if you are a Mac OS user, I would strongly consider it's well worth a one-time, a little over $100 fee for that. So Katie, if you want to skip to the next one, I just wanted to quickly kind of give you a look inside Scrutiny, and I'm almost positive that all of these things you can do in either Screaming Frog or Scrutiny, depending on which one you prefer. But related to kind of what we're talking about here and taking the temperature of your site health and looking for problems and doing an audit, just running a site, it's a spider essentially that, much like Google, will crawl your site and look for issues. And Scrutiny returns a really simple, comprehensive report on bad links, all different types of link issues and link statuses. So it's really nice for being able to just plug your website, or if you're an agency, plugging a client's website into and getting a very quick and comprehensive assessment of site health in terms of links there. Specifically for link assessments here, spotting broken links, and then spotting issues related to redirects. Sometimes there's weird things with redirects that can happen if you have if you have current pages that are linked to old pages. That's something that comes up from time to time, but there's some other kind of unique cases with redirects that will be surfaced from a tool like this that, if it's bad enough, might be impacting you in search engines. So another thing that is great about these tools, Scrutiny specifically, is giving you a technical SEO readout across the site. And it does this really nice roll up of, hey, you have one page without a title. You have 49 pages with thin content. So looking for inconsistencies in conventions, whether it's titling conventions that might have changed over time, spotting things that are missing, too long, too short, meta description things. I know meta descriptions get really messy, especially as time goes on and a site ages. that really lends itself to inconsistency and oversight. So being able to just look at a readout of every page with meta descriptions, both of these tools will give you pretty a unique way to look at all these technical aspects of your pages that is not very easy or sometimes even possible to do in HubSpot, but very important to do once in a while, just from an audit perspective. And then things like thin content are kind of really nice to know. So you can go in and look at those pages to see if, in fact, you should be, there's a problem with the content on those pages, or if you're expecting something from those pages and it's not giving you what you want, to go in and think about improvement projects for that. And then things like alt text on images, all these kind of basic technical SEO things that if you have glaring problems, especially the more of that kind of problem you have, might have an outsized impact, and the improvement there might be worth doing. So that's another area where Scrutiny and Screaming Frog are really good. And then I just thought I'd take a shot of all of the things that Scrutiny, at least, will give you insight into. I listed some of these things in the bullet points, but being able to look for all of these things across the site, it's something to do once a year for sure. Maybe less frequently, depending on the pace at which you're publishing new content or the pace at which your site changes overall. But being able to see all this stuff in one report is extremely helpful, and it's almost always the case that you spot something that you didn't know about, that might be having a serious impact on the site health. So another tool that I thought is extremely important for many reasons, but has some kind of surprising utility from an audit perspective, is Ahrefs. Ahrefs is a keyword research and monitoring tool. The monitoring part of that tool being what's relevant from an auditing perspective here. I listed the prices here if you're not familiar with Ahrefs. It's very similar to SEMrush. There's a number of tools, Moz, that do similar things with regard to keyword research. Ahrefs does a particularly good job, I think, of keyword monitoring, and they also now do some site scanning and site health things that are similar to what you would get with a Scrutiny or a Screaming Frog, but even goes into some more detail about the quality of the links that are going that are internal and external to the site, and some other technical aspects of the site that if you don't have an appetite for one of those, either the other tools, the fact that Ahrefs gives some site scanning health here only strengthens the case to be buying, to have access to a tool like this. It's not cheap, but its utility is incredible if you do have a regular use case for keyword research and monitoring like this. So I took a snap of this. Is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of a report that it'll give you. As an agency, we use this all the time and put all of our clients into Ahrefs and monitor their site, monitor their keyword performance. I have some more slides on that if you want to continue here, Katie. So target keyword monitoring is another big part of this, that while you're doing a HubSpot audit, to take a look and actually look at your content strategy, if that's part of your mix here. Ahrefs can give you some pretty unique insight into, okay, here's the list of 100 keywords or 50 keywords, however many keywords that are one of the pillars of your content strategy. You can go in and look at, if you want to just go back for a second there, Katie, you can bring those keywords into Ahrefs as a list and then monitor whether or not you're ranking for those keywords and what pages, and then be able to trend these things over time. So you can see if your site is improving overall for the keywords you're going after, if it's declining in improvement in performance, which specific pages are doing well, where you're moving from lower keywords to higher keywords in terms of, we're going from number 40 to number 20 or number 3 to number 1 in search rank. There's some really interesting and valuable insight to pull from there. You can go to the next one, Katie. Another thing, I blotted out the specifics here, but tracking content performance against actual keywords here. So what I'm looking at here, and I know that when it's censored here, it's a little bit hard to tell, but what I did here is just take a specific page, a piece of content, and analyzed it. And Ahrefs will tell me exactly what keywords that page is ranking for. So I can go back and validate that my target was met with whatever keyword I was going after. But even more than that, you can see what other keywords that page is ranking for. Maybe not on page 1, but on page 50. And that can give you some unique insight into, wow, I didn't have that keyword on my radar at all, or that's something long tail that I wasn't thinking about. This page is not ranking well for it at all, but maybe I should target that with another piece of content, or how can I improve this piece of content to go after that, previously unknown opportunity that I saw there. So you can track and audit your content by keyword, which is really powerful too. The last thing I put on here, you guys might be familiar with page speed insights, but another thing to kind of enter into the mix while you're doing a HubSpot audit. Site speed is, if you guys know about the core Web Vitals update that's sort of in progress with Google right now. Site speed has very recently become more important, and Google now gives you very good visibility into your core Web Vitals if you have everything set up in Google Search Console. So using page speed insights to take a sampling of your site pages, analyze them for site speed, it will give you core Web Vitals scores and help you actually reveal specific problems that are slowing down the site, so that you can, assign some development resources to fixing those. And if you're not familiar with it, this is an example of a portion of a report it gives you. You can open any of these and see exactly what is wrong with a specific page, or what Google feels is wrong with it, or what's slowing it down. You can go to the next one, Katie. And then part of this is a really cool tool. This sits on top of it uses page speed insights, but tools.sandbox.io lets you search use Google queries and then expose a list of page speed insight scores for the top ranking sites for that query. So if you are going after a specific keyword, you can see how much site speed might matter for going after that keyword by getting a sense of how well the competition is scoring with their PSI scores there. So if it is a big problem, or you can expose a problem, you can reveal that site speed might be a factor that's keeping you lower in ranking, and it can help you make a case for an improvement project there. If speed is really anchoring your site performance and kind of kneecapping all the other things you can do, you can kind of use some of this data to make a case for what could be a kind of an expensive development project there to improve. So we have 1 minute left. I'm done. If there's any questions that come in, or Katie, if you want to just very quickly go over how we audit.
So we do have an offer aligned with this presentation that we have done for some clients of ours. It is basically to go through and audit your portal for you. We take a look at 3 different things. Look at the specific tools, making sure that you are making the best use of them. Look at your tactics and your strategies, making sure that you are effectively using the strategies for marketing and sales. And then we look at some of the technical things. Make sure that there's not any gaps in your website setup, SEO type stuff. If you are interested in having us audit your portal, you can just email us, support@madisonmarketing.com. It involves like a quick 30-minute interview to kind of learn about your company, your goals, how you've used HubSpot in the past, and then you'll have to add us to your HubSpot portal for us to take a look around in there. We are all experienced HubSpot users and know very well not to delete anything. So we would be very careful. But again, if you're interested, just reach out, support@madisonmarketing.com. And like I said before, if you guys have any questions about how to do this yourself or about anything that we talked about during the presentation, don't hesitate to reach out as well. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll make sure to get you the recordings and the slide deck probably within the next day or so. Thanks.